Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us here on INC Live and for the UFC 295 preview show. My name is Karl Bainbridge and I am joined by the man on the right hand side of my screen. He is the Paul McCartney to my John Lennon. He's my friend and yours. It's Joe Neal. Joe, thank you very much for joining us.
Nice Rolling Stones reference, right? Did I get that one? I'm kidding. I couldn't help it. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be the EOS guy to your Dakota Kai.
I'll take it.
You know, yeah. I saw her like metal entrance, EOS guys, and I was like, that's the woman I gotta marry. I think that's her.
EOS Sky.
Yeah, EOS guy. I'm like, she came out in NXT to like a metal song, and I was like, this chick has the best moonsault. She's gorgeous. She's really good in the ring, and she likes metal. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. This is my future wife, my future ex-wife.
I actually chose Lennon and McCartney because obviously the Beatles have done that new AI song. It's like it's John's old vocal, but they've sort of spruced it up a bit. And I was hoping that Peter Jackson, who did the AI, he would try and get a hold of the original 294 and try and rescue my voice.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah, he's a good friend of the channel, as we know.
Yes.
And yeah, what's it called? He's going to use CGI to fix our facial hair that we've both managed to butcher.
Yeah.
And the
I was
last couple
trying to
weeks.
spruce it up this morning and ended up shaving a bit too much. And I just thought, there's no way I can go on air with a patchy beard. So it's just designer stubble right now. I've got the LA Night look going.
Yeah. I back when I was when I still drank, I used to, like an idiot, always try and trim the beard before bed. It was just like a routine I would do. I would trim it before bed, and then but I'd be going to bed drunk sometimes, like an idiot, and I would trim the beard, mess up, and it's like, well, there goes. I guess I'm just shaving it all off, and I did it like 4 or 5 times, and I said no more trimming the beard instead of no more drinking and trimming the beard. I just chose no more trimming the beard ever. So this was my first attempt in like a legitimate 4 years or so.
I like it though. You've got the sort of Boston Rob look going there.
Yeah. My brother told me that I went up 15 points in Mexican, so I'm no longer 50-50. I'm 65-45%.
Are you going to be referred to by Jose now?
Yeah. Well, that's technically my real name. It's legitimately my real name. This whole set.
So that's all
But
of
I just
our
like Joe
hot
more.
dogging and grandstand out the way. Thank you very much for tuning in for the preview show here. We'll be talking about UFC 295, which, if you look back at your history when it comes to mixed martial arts, Madison Square Garden in November, it's normally seen as one of the sort of marquee shows of the UFC's calendar, all sort of steamrolling towards a big show in December. Now, we've seen plenty of historic cards at MSG over the years. 205, of course, with Conor's history-making performance, the free title changes at 217. There's a lot of people, though, who are looking at 295 and thinking this one's a little bit, I wouldn't say lackluster, but very top-heavy. Is this an argument you would agree with?
I can agree with the argument but it needs the context of this is the first really good pay-per-view in about 3 or 4 on paper. So, like, I'm admittingly ecstatic for this card. But I also feel like a man dying of thirst in the desert currently. So I'm really excited for this one. But when you like compare it to 217, like 3 title changes, it's the greatest card ever. And 205 is a really good card that I've covered on the retro review. And
Please watch them. No one does.
they're the greatest things ever, outside of this show. But yeah, like the prior like Madison Square Garden cards are amazing. Unlike Brooklyn cards. Brooklyn cards are super hit or miss, sometimes missing, like really bad. But like Madison Square Garden cards are usually amazing, and this one, I think it's awesome, but it doesn't necessarily live up to the hype that maybe these cards usually hold.
I tell you what this card feels like to me. Like, on London cards, when you kind of have a good idea of who's going to be part of it every year. So there's always going to be a Paul Craig fight. You're always going to get Molly McCann. Danny Roberts will probably make an appearance. Mark DeCasey, people like that. It's kind of a bit like that, in that I could probably close my eyes and pick out the people who are probably going to be part of an MSG show. So you're going to be getting Frevola in there. You're going to be getting Pat Sabatini. A lot of the Serra-Longo guys are going to be on there. And it's a little bit colour by numbers. And as mentioned before, I think they put a lot of weight into John Jones and Stipe's name value to try and sell this card. And I don't think it worked for two reasons. One, we saw the ticket prices. And we saw the sort of reported numbers that were coming out there. People just weren't clicking with the card. And of course, John is now off the show itself. And we're sort of seeing the fallout from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all it took was them announcing USADA's gone, and suddenly he's injured until after January when the contract ends. It's a weird coincidence. I don't know.
We'll be talking about John Jones in a lot more detail when we get to the core main event. But now, though, we're going to be just taking a little bit of a tangent. One of the great things about recording this on the Saturday is we're able to get a little bit of breaking news before most of the other channels. It's one of the few plus sides that we have over people like MK and etc. etc. There was a bit of breaking news which broke overnight where we are. Finally, the women's bantamweight title is going to be claimed. It's going to be happening in January in Canada. Now, I put out a poll a couple of days ago, ironically, asking people what pairing they thought was going to make up that title fight. Not one person said this pair. It's going to be Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva fighting for that belt. First time you've heard this story, Joe, what's your initial reaction?
My first initial reaction is, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I want to say rest in peace to the greatest video that it could still happen, but that may never have the full context for the light of day, to the My Way promo you cut. the My Way, for anyone that doesn't know, Karl cut a fantastic My Way promo to get people excited for one of the least exciting matchups in UFC history, which is Juliana Pena versus Rocky Pennington. And people were loving it when you posted it on Twitter.
Jack Slack retweeted it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I love what he said. He was like, this mad lad actually did it.
This actually makes me excited for a Juliana Pena fight.
Yeah, I hate watching her fight. And I like Rocky a lot, but I'll admit her fights aren't the greatest. They can be, though. Sometimes her fights are just awesome. Very hot and cold for me. But I was pumped for that. So that sucks. Maybe we'll get it down the line if Rocky wins. The other thing is, I'm really happy it's at least these two because they are the two most deserving. Like, it kind of feels like a throwback to meritocracy, something that the UFC isn't known for. Daniel Cormier's out here spouting Conor McGregor should fight Islam. So, who knows?
Yeah,
but going back to meritocracy, this is fantastic. This is good booking, I think.
I certainly think so as well. And I think regardless of who wins this fight, I think we're going to get a good story out of it. Because in the case of Rocky, I think Raquel Pennington, like everyone knows my Raquel Pennington fandom. And part of the reason for that is I think there's something very old school about her. And I like the idea of the sort of veteran fighter who's been through the wars, faced a lot of setbacks, and then finally gets that moment right at the end of their career. Like, a lot of people were calling Raquel, like, past it. Like, I think she lost that match against Holly, and people thought she's sort of redundant to the weight class now. And now she's on the best run of form of her career, and has earned a title fight off merit. And it's sort of a bit Bisping-esque if she was to win the belt. And in terms of Mayra Silva, who... I'm not the biggest fan of Mayra in terms of her personality. I think she'd be quite cringy. But the division desperately needs a sort of changing of the guard moment. And I think Mayra winning the belt, who's very much sort of the new generation of bantamweights, I think it could be that sort of symbol. Because if Rocky was to win, you're going to get people saying, well, you've only got the belt because Nunes isn't there. That's inevitably going to happen.
Absolutely.
Where do you personally stand, though? Like, as things stand right now, we don't know what's happening with Volkanovski. We don't know what's happening with Topuria or any of the title fights. As things stand right now, this is going to headline in Canada. Surely the UFC aren't going to do that again.
No, they're not going to do it. Two unproven pay-per-view stars. Like, well, I mean, Pennington's been in the main event, but it
Of
was
the
a
second
bad
worst drawing pay-per-view of the modern era.
ever. Yeah, and that card itself wasn't doing any of them favors, but it was it kind of reminds me of like my dad used to talk about Tyson fights pre Buster Douglas, of how it's like they weren't doing very well and they were free because everyone was like, he's just going to go in and KO a guy in 30 seconds. That was kind of, I feel like, a lot of people's mindsets with Nunes. It was like, who cares? Like, she's just going to win. Um, she had that kind of Roman Reigns, John Cena, like, kind of thing to her without the, kids loving her. Um, I think I think that's a good fight. I think one thing I really like about it too, that you kind of brought up there, is it's really interesting having two very cool storylines kind of colliding in the middle for a title fight, and that's what you want to talk about when a title fight is made. You don't want to talk about the controversy and behind the curtain kind of thing. You want to talk about the things that are on the stage, and I think that's what is a good sign of good booking. Dare I say, that's the best booking they could have without having me employed. Um,
I'm telling you,
uh,
if you weren't so harsh on Roman Dolidze, you would have got that job.
it's not that I was harsh on Roman Dolidze. It was that I was sweet on Cheyenne of Lisma. So, um, it's a beautiful woman. But it's I like Bueno Silva. I think she has a very unfortunate nickname, MBS, because I think of IBS, which is a disease I have.
I think of
So
Mohammed bin Salman, which opens up the
it's
whole
fair.
Saudi can of worms.
Oh no, um, oh, it's fair actually. And then, but she did the impossible. She made me excited after a Holly Holm fight. Usually I'm feeling usually I feel lethargic. I go take a nap for hours. Karl, you're texting me going, "Hey, where's the recap at?" Oh no, I slept past everything. I got to do the recap and try and appear excited. And you guys see how tired I am after a Holly fight. It's a horrible process, but I was so pumped to do the recap after seeing it. And yeah, I got overturned, but whatever. Holly ain't here, so good. And for Rocky, I think you kind of talked about it like pretty well. It's at the end like very Bisping-esque, and she kind of reminds me of a fighter I'm very fond of that was almost on this card. Funny enough, is Stipe. Like, so Stipe isn't as flashy as like a Fedor. Fedor had all the moves. He looked like that and just had it all. Stipe was meat and potatoes and experience. And that's kind of how Rocky is to me. Meat and potatoes kind of fighter, very old school, but tons of experience and knows how to, you know, like use that experience to her advantage. And she's getting, this is a great run. I honestly am going to root for her. I don't know if I'm going to pick her yet. I have to do more research because that is an interesting matchup, admittingly.
That's something that we can look forward to in January. For now, though, we're going to be turning our attention back to what's going to be happening on Sunday evening. Well, Saturday evening, I should say. I'm going to start off by talking about the prelims. You can see those on our screen right now. Now, as mentioned before, we're certainly not seeing the star power as we have done with the other MSG cards, but we have picked out a couple of names which could be of interest. And our main focus is going to be on the prelim headliner itself. So we're going to the strawweight division for this one. And Tabitha Ricci is going to be taking on Lupi Godinez, a battle of girls who both want to try and make it into the top 10. Are we potentially looking at a potential dark horse in this weight class in the form of Tabitha Ricci? 9-1, 5-fight winning streak. Her only loss in the UFC came against Manon Fiorot, which was short notice and a flyweight. Are we looking at someone that, people could maybe keep an eye out for?
I hope so. I think she's fun. Or not fun, she's got a good meritocracy win streak here. She has names under her belt. One of them I'm gonna shrug my shoulders at. Polyana Viana.
You're
Sure.
still scarred by that JJ Aldrich fight.
She is a beautiful woman and is very funny. Her talking about Colby Covington is one of the grossest and funniest things I've ever read. But I had to watch that fight because of her. So, there you go. But Jessica Penne, one of my favorites. She finished Penne. and Gillian Robertson. So good. Those are good names. I think the Robertson one's pretty solid as well. And then Loopy's like she just fought not that long ago. She fought in September. I'm seeing here. I was like, didn't she just fight? But yeah. And she has some names under her belt. She's only lost to like, I think I can only think of like Angela Hill. Was like the most recent one, I think.
She had a
but Angela
flyweight
Hill's,
fight against, I think, Luana Carolina, I'm tempted to say.
and did she lose?
She lost that one, yeah, but that was like I think she fought Silvana Juarez, dominated her, took zero damage, and like took the fight the week after because Luana's fight fell through, and Loopy just said, "Hey, what the hell? I'm getting an extra paycheck."
Oh yeah, I see it here. Yeah, because I remember the Juarez fight. She just snatched that arm like it was nothing. And but she's a solid finisher on the ground. Or decent. Like she finished her last fight with a rear naked choke. So she's looking solid. I think the winner of this could be a dark horse. I am kind of leaning towards Richie because I put stock into the fact that, that your only loss is to someone who is arguably ready for a title shot now, and like you fought at the wrong weight. You beat one of the best. You lost to one of the best fighters at a different weight class. It's kind of almost like saying you're almost undefeated in my mind.
And it comes at a good time as well for the strawweight division, because I don't know about you, I think that strawweight in this sort of post-Rose era, it's lacking a little bit. I don't know if that's flyweight taking a lot of the shine away from the strawweight, but like there used to be a time when nearly every strawweight top 10 match would be a banger, and we're just not really seeing that as much these days.
I don't understand this concept that is happening where only one women's division can be good at a time. That's not fair. Like, because I thought strawweight was arguably like a top 3 weight class in the world in terms of entertainment. And now it's like, okay, there's Wiley Zhang at the top. Who's going to beat her? I don't know. Unless Rose comes back, I don't see it.
Suarez, that's the one I want to see. I want to see Suarez.
Oh yeah, I always think she's at flyweight, but she's staying at strawweight. Man, I don't think anybody's beating her. She's going to. That's the most Dagestani Mexican chick I've ever seen. She's going to just fling people and smash all the way to a title. I don't see anyone beating her. But like, man, flyweight has like all these names. It has Alexa Grasso, obviously. The champ. 2-0, basically, is my mind. It should have been a 10-7 that last round. Should have been a 10-7 round, I think. I scored it 10-6, and I think I was a little too harsh, but 10-7 sounds about right. So I scored it for Grasso. I'm joking. Don't worry.
There are chef diehards that will be posting about this in the comments.
There's one in particular I always like messing with, but I mean it all in good fun. Like, he's a very good guy. He's always talking on the channel, and so I have a lot of respect and love for you, man. But I just gotta mess with you a little bit. You can make fun of me, make fun of my obviously trying to look younger and more Mexican stash if you want. But no, now I mean, like, it's 1-0-1 for her Grasso, but then there's Valentina as well. There's Aaron Blanchfield, who Manon Farrow. Like, there's a lot happening at flyweight, and at strawweight, it's like, all right, a single Mackenzie Dern. Like, that's what's exciting. And Suarez, I don't know. It needs something. So I'm hoping it's one of these two women to like really break out and be like, hey, I'm the next star of this division, or I'm one of the next stars. Like I want 2 good women's divisions. I don't feel like that's hard to ask for.
Yeah. Other fights that are of note on the prelims, Steve Ursig, the resident regional manager of Dunder Mifflin, he's going to be back in action. He's going to be taking on Alessandro Costa. Ursig, who is competing for the first time since he got a short notice win over David Dvorak. A lot of people thought that performance was deserving of taking Dvorak's ranking entirely and becoming a top 10 fighter. Do you have any opinion on Ursig?
I think he should be around, like, at least around top 10. What is he ranked right now?
14. He's going to be taking on 15, which is Costa.
I think he should be around like 11, 12. Admittingly, I thought he looked really good in that last fight. And Costa's fun, if it's the guy I'm thinking of. That fight sounds good. There's one fight on the prelims that really is catching my eye, though, and Jared Gordon versus Mark Madsen. Mark Madsen is a mega wrestler, and it hasn't necessarily translated to MMA, but I'm always waiting for it to. He's a little older in age, too, which probably hurts.
I think he's, 37 right now, so that's quite late to be making that transition. I do feel a bit sorry for Jared Gordon, though, because you can remember 11 months ago, he was the co-main event against Paddy Pimblett and beat Paddy Pimblett in the eyes of a lot of people, and now here he is on the Fight Pass prelims.
I mean, honestly, Paddy Pimblett should be thanking him, like, right now, because Paddy Pimblett wouldn't have been a main event if it wasn't for that star power Jared Gordon has. But now, all jokes aside, I feel bad for the guy, because he looked really good. Well, he looked a lot better than Paddy did that night. Paddy looked horrible that night, which a lot of us in the know knew that ceiling was coming. So, but yeah, Gordon, like, he made Paddy, brought him down, kind of thing. And it was like, okay, maybe this guy goes on a run. And then here comes the Bobby Green thing. And it's like, okay. And then he got KO'd anyways. And I'm hoping he can kind of turn it around. But who knows? I mean, at least he's going to be unknown co-main eventers on Alonus maybe in the future for the channel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of these Apex co-mains.
Oh, I mean, because you did the forgotten MMA main eventers. Alex Perez was like one I was like, oh, that's right, yeah. He did main event a card.
I think I might do a sequel of that, because I think there's enough. Because like you're forgetting people like Ryan LaFleur or a lot of Mighty Mouse's opponents, like John Moraga. Do you remember John Moraga?
I remember John Moraga. Yeah, because he got Kimura in like a round and a half. Then there was like Wilson Hayes. There was
Chris Carriasso.
Oh my God, that's another one. Yeah,
Ali Balgatinov.
That was a pay-per-view. The Ali Balgatinov one, if I remember correctly. I think that was a pay-per-view they sold, and just wow, and a lot of guys. And nothing against Mighty Mouse. He did his job and looked like a dominant monster throughout. So, I mean, just kind of how it is.
We could be talking about Mighty Mouse all day, but we're going to be turning our attention to the main card itself.
There is one more, because we've been talking about this nickname. I thought this was the guy, and I had to look up the nickname. The Sexy Mexi is on the undercard. Yeah,
Castaneda.
John Castaneda. Yeah, John Castaneda's on the undercard. Sexy Mexi.
And I think as well, if it's the right person, I think Kang as well, his opponent, he has a great name as well. He's Mr. Wonderful.
He is Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, that fight actually could be really good because both those guys are bangers. So,
does this mean that Kang, before his fight, is going to get Gary Spivey of the Psychic Companions Network talking to him before the fight?
He's gonna. I liked his old name better, Narcissus. Oh no, for some reason I got Lex Luger and Paul Orndorff. Dude, no. Instead, he's gonna beat up Vader in the back. I don't know if you ever heard that story. Paul Orndorff apparently beat up Vader in flip-flops in WCW. They got into a fist fight in the back.
If you get the chance, I know a lot of people here aren't wrestling fans, but if you are, check out the Paul Orndorff Gary Spivey segment from WCW. One of the funniest things you will ever watch.
The big helmets, like the big white. I remember that. Yeah.
And Orndorff's acting, which is awful.
He was the main eventer of the first WrestleMania.
He was.
Yeah. And he had that really funny acting moment where Hulk Hogan isn't returning my calls. Like, hangs up the phone really politely while he's raging mad. It's super funny.
So we are going to be talking about the main card. Now, the order of this card has been changing over the past couple of days. We're recording this based off Marcel Dorf's most recent card order, which was done on the Friday afternoon. So fight number one based off that is going to be taking place in the featherweight division. and it's Diego Lopes who's going to be taking on Pat Sabatini. Lopes for this one comes in as a slight underdog at plus 110. You can get Sabatini in at minus 130. Now, we usually like to talk about some of these sort of rookies of the year when it comes to the UFC. So people who made their debut in 2023, if we ever get around to doing like an end of year awards show, we'll probably include this as a category. Diego Lopes, based on what we've seen so far, has to be up there as one of the contenders.
I think he ran away and took it already. If he wins this fight, he has for me. Wow. He came in on short notice, and who was it that he fought?
Evloev.
And made it and he fought Evloev, who's super good. And my brain went to Alaskarov for some reason, but yeah, it was Evloev. And he just made it Evloev, who was insane, really struggled to win in a very good fight on a week notice. Just blew us out of the water. And then he took on Gavin Tucker, who I like a lot. He's really good, really underrated. Like that, just snatched him up, triangle, like it was nothing. And this guy's running away with it this year. I figured they put him on the card because he's kind of maybe they're thinking what I'm thinking, man, how good is this guy? Put him on the main card. Let's ride this wave a little bit.
And he's an action fighter as well. You very seldom get grappling-based fighters who are action fighters as well.
Yeah, constant movement. He's just constantly go. Very aggressive jiu-jitsu game. And this, I know Damian Maia really hurt a lot of perception of jiu-jitsu fighters for a while because he was just the human backpack. He's going to get on your back, just hold you there for 3 rounds. Let's go. But, this guy just, if you touch the ground with him, it's like you're playing lava because he's just going and he's going to try and sweep you. If he can't sweep you, he's going to go for a leg or an arm or a neck. He's always going for something, and it is awesome. Very aggressive. I'm super pumped for this fight. I'm super pumped to see Diego Lopes fight again.
What do you make of the decision to put him against Pat Sabatini? Now, Sabatini, 18-4 record. He was on a good run of form, and a lot of people thought, hey, maybe this guy could be a little bit of a dark horse. The Damon Jackson fight happens. Damon Jackson, who I think is very underrated. He puts
Massively.
in pretty much the best performance of his career to finish him very early on. Did manage to recover though. He got the win over Lucas Almeida. He's also a guy as well, and this is the part which I'm most interested in, with a real grappling base himself. So this is wrestler versus jiu-jitsu. Are the UFC hoping that we get these sort of fast scrambles to play into Lopez's portfolio, or is this going to be 2 grapplers having a sloppy kickboxing match?
I think it depends on... I think in these cases, whenever you have the 2 grapplers, especially when it's a wrestler taking on a submission expert, like a jiu-jitsu player or something like that, I think it depends on how afraid of the ground the wrestler is. So, for a recent retro review, I had to watch Wagner Eduardo Holshaw versus Jake Ellenberger. In fact, very unpolished Ellenberger. And Holshaw really can't take Ellenberger down, and Ellenberger isn't he's striking with him, trying to make things work, and but his instinct is to take him down, and he doesn't want to because he doesn't want to end up tapped out. That's usually where it kind of lies, is if you have the sloppy kickboxing match, if the guy who can take the fight to the floor just doesn't want to. So I think it really depends on is how worried is he of Pat Sabatini of Diego Lopez's ground game. I'm hoping he isn't afraid. He's I don't care. And we just have, because Matt Serra trains. The Serra Longo guys, those guys can go on the ground. Superstar grapplers. Chris Weidman
as well. That's a real trait of the Serra Longo team.
When Serra Longo sends a guy to Abu Dhabi, they're instantly a guy to watch for. And they sent a good amount of guys there. I remember they sent Chris Weidman one year. And I don't watch Abu Dhabi. I usually just check the results because I'm always interested in it. It's always very telling, I think, of and stuff like that. But they sent Chris Weidman there, who I think made it to the semifinals only as a purple belt, just using wrestling and what like the little training in comparison to the other guys from Matt Serra, and he got like to the semifinals. I think he got beat by like Marcelo Garcia, who's like one of the greatest grapplers ever. But just unbelievable run he had, and it's kind of a big deal. So I think I like Sarah Longo has what can't even talk. All my power was in my facial hair too. Um, and but yeah, it's very like telling, I think, in that Sarah Longo is a crazy grappling gym. They make great strikers too, very smart fighters as well. Sometimes Aljo can be a little stupid sometimes, but he's another great grappler. Um, so I don't think he would be too worried, and I think we could have a really, really, really fun, just scramble heavy grappling match. Like trying to think of those grappling brawls that we've seen. Like Gamrot, Benil Dariush was another one that was awesome.
Yeah, but before Benny started taking over. But I love that first
Oh,
round.
that first round is incredible. That fight
Big,
is awesome. I like that fight a lot.
very
Underrated
short, but the
fight.
end sequence of Mia versus Big Nog. Like
Yeah,
once that hits the
that
ground, it's amazing.
it's only they're only like on the ground going back and forth for like maybe 3 seconds, and that's some of the best 3 seconds ever in a fight. Another one is like I always think of Carparige and Diego Sanchez. Those guys were just throwing each other constantly, flipping the other one over. That fight's really fun. I just love a good grappling scramble heavy fest. A lot of Benil Dariush's fights. I think Carlos Diego Fajeda. Both of those fights are really grappling heavy, just brawls between them. Those fights are awesome, and yeah, I could see this fight being that way too. It's gonna be interesting.
What I think is fascinating when looking at Diego Lopes is we're treating him as sort of like this sort of new kid on the block, this sort of like this fresh new toy, and people want to really sort of cash in on sort of the hype. But this is a guy who's had 28 fights. He's lost 6 of them. It's like it's strange to me that we seem to that there's such a big fanfare over a guy. I think journeyman might be a bit too strong of a word to use for him, but he's done the rounds on the regional scene. He's
Mm.
suffered losses. How has he put it all together?
I don't know. I think a lot. I've heard this theory, and I don't necessarily believe it, but I've heard this theory that sometimes you can have like a really good guy on the regional scene who's unbeaten in the regional scene. They hit a major promotion and they lose every fight. Then they just go back to crushing the regionals. And I've heard if you can take a guy who's just okay, or at least upper pretty good on the regionals, and then when those bright lights hit, they just kind of turn it up. I wonder if it's something like that because I do think there is some confidence issues that can happen, but I don't think that's how it necessarily just always is going to play out in that theory. I wonder if it's something like that. I also think right now, that camp is doing really
Hmm.
well. I mean, they have
Well, he guided Grosso
uh,
to her title win, and like
yeah,
he's the coach.
yeah, he's the coach of Alexa Grasso, the best flyweight champ ever.
Asterix.
I don't know where the asterisk is for. Uh, ain't no Barry Bondsing here. Um, uh, the most exciting and best fighter at flyweight ever. I love you, Chef fans. This is all fun. Please mess with me back. It's way more fun that way. Um, but I think a lot of that, like, I've seen that happen. Like, man, AKA had that for a while where one guy would do insane, and then here comes this flood of momentum where everyone just starts popping off. I guess all it took was kicking Josh Koscheck and John Fitch out for them. Um, but then, like, American Top Team recently, remember, like, they had, like, 3 champs, all this, Trevor Whitman's team for a while where everyone was, like, on all cylinders. They had 3 champions at one point.
City kickboxing.
And yeah, City Kickboxing has a lot going. They just like sometimes you kind of get into that groove, and the whole team just gets elevated. Because it's kind of weird because MMA isn't a team sport; it's a very individual sport. But the team aspect is still there, and it's still important that camaraderie you build with your team, you know, and because they elevate you if you want them to do good, obviously, because they're your training partners and you care about them. on the flip side, if they're doing good too and you're doing good, you guys elevate each other. And I wonder if it's that as well. Like all the, the woo from Alexa Grasso, like doing it all. And I wonder if that's played a part. Because, man, he's looked insane in his 2 fights in the UFC. For a guy that's 1-1, I'm hyped on him like the UFC wanted me to be hyped on Patty. Like, I'm all over this guy.
Yeah, he's basically what we wanted Paddy to be, that sort of active submission guy. I am interested to see, though, because I personally think, I know there's fears of this being a sort of kickboxing match, and I completely understand why that is. I actually personally think that between the two, I think Lopes is the better striker. Because, I mean, he was a little bit outclassed by Evloev, but I think he did enough to hold his own. Evloev was better, but it wasn't demolition. And Sabatini does have some issues. He does take a little bit of damage before he can get his wrestling game going. Damon Jackson exploited that in his last loss. But I do think it's going to go to the ground. The question for me is Pat Sabatini enough of a natural athlete to neutralize Lopes? Because if not, I can see Lopes getting those sweeps, getting top position, and creating some problems for him.
I think when, like, in the terms of the technique of, like, wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, a pure wrestler is going to kind of struggle a little bit. But once they manage to just pin him down and maintain top control very well, like those kind of wrestlers that are just super strong, like Kurt Angle was kind of like that, like in amateur wrestling, very good at just ripping you down and pinning you. Those guys are going to do a lot better against jiu-jitsu guys in terms of that. But nowadays, everyone's a little bit of everything, So I think you did make a good point, like how much of like can he neutralize him with his athleticism? I'm kind of wondering if Sabatelli's like, I don't want to take this fight to the ground. I think I can outstrike you, because he does have more experience in on the big show, so he probably has the confidence as well. I wonder if Lopes can. I mean, I think it's always interesting if you don't mind getting taken down, you can just let it rip with kicks all day. I wonder if Lopes can hurt him or like make him panic and rely on that instinct to change levels and get the double. I could kind of see that playing into it, like him rushing him, being aggressive. What was his name? Cody McKenzie on The Ultimate Fighter. He did that to Josh Koscheck's #1 pick. He just rushed him with like a kick, and the dude went into like pure instinct mode and just shot a double and just cranked his neck and tapped him out in like 6 seconds. I wonder if something like that can happen. Because I feel like you're playing with lava if you go to the ground with him. But I am really curious to see what the ground game looks like. That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
I'm certainly hoping for as well. Which way are you going to go for this one? Are you picking Lopes or Sabatini?
I go Lopes second round submission, I think. I think he taps him.
I'm going to go the same way. I think we could get a competitive first round, plays out primarily on the feet. I do see a situation where I think Sabatini is going to try and shoot in, and that's when I could see him locking up the neck. My one sort of cause for concern is, like, yes, Lopes looked fantastic against Evloev, bearing in mind the short notice and bearing in mind how good Evloev is. Like, he's going to be fighting Arnold Allen, so he could potentially be a potential Volk opponent further down the road.
I hope so.
The Gavin Tucker fight, I still have question marks about, because Tucker was coming back after a long layoff and he was 37 at the time, so maybe I think a lot of people might be putting too much weight into that. I think it's going to be a better gauge for how good Diego Lopes actually is. In terms of entertainment, I hope Lopes does win this one, because I think he's a very entertaining fighter.
Oh yeah, I want to see him in the future. I got to root for him, because that's the kind of guy that you want to see move up in a division, or move up the rankings in a division.
Yeah, is that genuine, or is that your Lobo gym bias?
Maybe, I do like dogs. Lobo means wolf. Big canine fan.
You got your dog back as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Nino. His name is Nino, little Chihuahua. Like a Chihuahua mix mutt. We think he's like a Chihuahua and a German Shepherd. So we think he is. He's kind of a, and I don't even want to know how that was made, but um, but also at Lobo Gym is my second wife that I'm going to stay with forever. First is going to be Io Shirai, and then second wife will be Alexa Grasso. So it's gonna get a good future in front of me, I think.
Because I did have a lot of people, when you told that story about the dog running away, there were people posting saying, "Oh my God, is the dog okay?"
Oh wow, really?
Yes.
That's fantastic. Yeah, he's back. He's good to go. He's a pain in the rear. When I was sick this week, he found a way to get out of the fence because we closed up where he got out originally. Well, he found another way, and he got out twice within 20 minutes, and I had to chase him down the street twice in a morning when it's freezing cold and I'm sick, and just flip flops, just chasing him, trying to get him back, and he was just like, oh, I want to go explore the neighborhood. I can do that now, right? No, you can't. You're a little dog. You're a good-looking dog. Someone's gonna snatch you up, or worse. You gotta stay here. And now he's been cool the last couple of days, but he's I got him some new toys. He's been loving life.
Fantastic to hear. And speaking of fantastic to hear, fight number 2. This one potentially could be a fight of the night contender. I know a lot of people online who are looking forward to this one. It is Matt Frevola who is going to be taking on Benoit Saint-Denis in the lightweight division. Betting odds for this one, Saint-Denis comes in at a minus 200 favourite. You can get Matt Frevola at plus 170. And what can you say, Joe? This one promises to be a belter.
It's the good man Jim Ross said it best. This is a slobber knocker. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker at least. I think Benoit Saint-Denis, I think a great way to put it is he kind of reminds me of what Clay Guida, people said about Clay Guida, puts his chin down, just goes all in, super aggressive, will try and get the fight to the floor, doesn't care if he's eating counter shots left and right, just letting it wing and let it rip with decent power, a very aggressive finisher as well. And Matt Frevola just knocked out Drew Dober in a crazy fight.
And Drew Dober was notorious for how good his chin was. And Frevola was the first one to crack it.
Oh, yeah. They smashed on each other, and it was incredible. That fight's awesome, too. I love Drew Dober. I love Matt Frevola's awesome. I think he gets bad rep because a lot of people go, isn't that the guy Terrence McKinney knocked out in 7 seconds? Whatever. This fight sounds unbelievable, though. It is just going to be the unstoppable force meets the immovable object just colliding in a good division at lightweight. So I'm all in.
You did bring up something there, with the McKinney loss, is that one thing that I've noticed when it comes to MMA fans is they're very selective when it comes to which fights they hold grudges against and which ones they kind of retcon. Because you could sort of say this in both cases. Frevola has 2 very quick losses in the UFC, not only with the McKinney loss, and we know McKinney is a round 1 tank. He's always going to swarm you on the early stages. But also Polo Reyes put him out in a minute in his UFC debut as well. And in the case of Saint-Denis, people are sort of really getting behind this guy as a potential contender in this division. What happened in his UFC debut? He got dominated by Zaleski dos Santos in the fight that Kiselev refused to stop.
That's right. That was him. Oh, that's weird. That's so weird to think. That's weird to think. I forgot. I remember Zaleski smashing it, but I forgot that was that weird ref moment. One of the worst ones.
I don't think he's ref since.
Good. I am as a pro fighter safety. I am good. But on the flip, I will say, I think it's so in boxing's really weird, right? In boxing, if you lose on the way up, people are always going to bring it up. There's a reason guys like Mayweather were so protective of their records. It's do I fight Sugar Shane Mosley now when he's good? No, let's wait years after he's washed up.
Or Canelo before his prime.
Yeah, let's fight. Like, and Canelo fought Triple G way too late too, probably. And like a lot of people do that, um, and because they're really protective of their records. Like records mean a lot more in boxing, and I think MMA has it right where records typically don't mean as much. I think to me, but at the same like the greatest fighter of all time to us is George St. Pierre. He lost to Matt. He's lost twice. You know, he did not win his first title shot, and then he lost on his first title defense after getting the belt. So, and he's still the greatest ever. Um, but fans still kind of keep that because there's a crossover between boxing and MMA mindsets, and that still has it. So people bring up the Frevola, Terrence McKinney one, but I'm surprised no one brings up the Benoit Saint-Denis. I think it's because they're scared of him. I think that first name frightens people.
Yeah, it's I even made
Unfortunate.
I'm actually not going to repeat that on air. I was going to say something in regards to Benoit winning by chalk, which wouldn't have gone down very well.
All I planned on saying is I'm not picking him to win via crossface. Was the only thing I was going to say that I went. That feels like I'm idolizing the man. I For anyone that doesn't know, consider yourself lucky. But yeah,
So
I
let
this
us
fight's
talk.
going to be fantastic.
Let us talk about Benoit Saint-Denis in a little bit more detail. Let's try and dissect why the hype is the way it is. So his last fight only came a few months ago. He was on the Paris card. He beat Thiago Moises, who's always been sort of a bit of a gatekeeper when it comes to the lightweight top 15. A very solid out.
Mm-hmm.
If you get through him and do it comfortably, you're usually seen as someone to look out for. Outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
he's also beaten Ismail Bonfim, Gabriel Miranda, and Nicholas Stoltz. 3 KOs, 9 submissions, so he's always won inside the distance. In terms of, you've had the chance to look at his fighting style in a lot more detail. What is it intrinsically that's making people so excited for this guy?
It's the gas pedal. He doesn't let off of it. Uh, he is coming at you full force with good power. He's not the most technical guy in the world. On the ground, he's actually pretty technical. He's just super aggressive on the ground too. So finding like a technician on the ground is a little harder than finding a technician on the feet. On the feet, it's very obvious if you look at Clay Guida and Israel Adesanya, who the more technical guy is. It's pretty easy. But like seeing a Yair Rodriguez on the ground versus let me think of somebody, you know, like Diego Lopes actually on the ground. Like which one's the technician? They fight kind of similar, but it's Lopez, you know. But not Sabatelli, Benoit Saint Denis, a pretty solid grappler. Good technique, super aggressive, loves to snatch that neck up. But the big thing people like is he's finishing fights at 170 and below. If you finish fights at 170 below, you have hype on you. There's a reason Conor McGregor had the hype. He had the mouth and the KOs. The other thing is we love action. We love an exciting fight. No one talks about and lists off the accomplishments of Caleb Starnes, who infamously was beat by Nate Quarry doing this at him. Uh, no one talks about that moment. Israel Adesanya is a fantastic former champion, but I think his legacy is going to be tarnished by the amount of awful fights he's been in. Um, you know, where he himself wasn't ever the aggressor, and because it's one thing to be in a bad fight when you're the aggressor, it's something you can do.
I think sometimes the
But
highlight reel moments do make up for the boring fights. Like Anderson had some stinkers
sure,
early in his run.
his highlights are untouchable. Yeah, that's a fair point. I like that. Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Because my God, I've watched Cote. I watched Cote and Anderson Silva. I've seen that fight before. It's awful. I like Patrick Cote. Awful fight. Tali's Leches. Oh, awful one. But his highlights are insane. Um, I've seen a bad Crow Cop fight before. Probably one of the best, you know, highlight reels ever is Crow Cop. So this guy, he's all action. He's always bringing it, and he gets the results too. Like Clay Guida was a lot of action for a while, but very rarely got the finish. This guy gets the finish, and like you can tell, there's a noticeable thing with power, and he just breaks you. Like there's something so I think that's one thing I really like about MMA lately in their fandom is there's a lot of fan appeal and the constant. This sounds awful. A fly on the wall is going to think I'm such a barbarian, but there's a lot of fan appeal in the breaking down of another grown man. Like Habib, I think you've said that you're not the biggest fan of his style, but I was.
It's
I will say,
effective.
but
It's effective. I'm just not a fan
yeah,
of watching it.
yeah, it's fair. I think there was a lot of people who enjoyed it though, like at least more than the average wrestler. I would say, like not like a Gaethje. He didn't have that level of popularity for his fights, but I think people liked him more than the average wrestler because of how aggressive he was. Like his fight with Pat Healy, he's literally just running, throwing 1,000 hooks into a random flying knee and then a huge double leg, and then just pounds him on the mat. And that's the entire fight for 15 minutes, and it's awesome. People like that, like that kind of just go, like run at the guy, just take him out. It's really easy for a guy who is on his fourth beer watching a fight card at your sports bar or pub and to go, just why don't you just run at him? Then here's a guy who kind of just runs at him. It's like, oh yeah, like there's an appeal to that, and I think that's a lot of things. He's so pleasing to us that, and he's winning. It's kind of Justin Gaethje-esque. Justin Gaethje was in all these sloppy brawls that were awesome, and we had a tons of hype for him, and rightfully so, in fairness. But yeah, I think this guy is the real deal. I think he's just, in terms of fun, I totally get the hype on him.
The other big thing that stands out for Saint-Denis is that this was a guy who was primarily known as a grappling threat. I mean, if you look at his record, 9 submissions, 3 KOs, but he's got a lot more confidence in his hand these days. It's very similar, ironically enough, to Matt Frevola, who used to be known as a cardio wrestler. He was looking to take people down. And now, most people know him for these sort of like pocket brawls.
Oh yeah, his mastery in the pocket is actually really fun.
Yes.
The Frevola Drew Dober fight's really fun because Drew Dober loves being in that firefight, and he hated it against Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola's very slick. If you're gonna catch Matt Frevola, you got to catch him out of nowhere and at a distance. If you're in the pocket letting it rip, it's really hard to kind of catch him clean because this matchup's so sick. I'm so excited for this card. Like I said earlier, I feel like a guy who's been drowning, like with a saltwater river running next to me that just has Apex cards, or not drowning, sorry, dying of thirst with the saltwater river next to me, and now there's finally like a bottled water in the distance at this oasis, and it's this card. I'm so pumped. This analogy's terrible, metaphor's terrible, but and yeah, this fight sounds so awesome. I'm actually excited to buy a UFC card. I haven't had that excitement in a while.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't earn enough money, or else I would have paid it for you.
Well, that's okay. Well, hey,
Well, you
I
want the
have
payroll,
ways.
so I kind of have to.
Well, remember, I owe an outstanding debt. So that's I remember you said I work for free until I pay off your debt.
Yes,
Or
yes, I
until I pay
remember
off
that.
my
Yes.
debt. Yeah. Yeah, paying off your debt. I owe you a lot of money. That's one of my favorite little responses.
I think this one's going to be very interesting. I think that Matt Frevola is the more proven fighter at this level. I think if you
Yeah.
compare the resumes of the two fighters, I think that Frevola has beaten better competition, like Dober, but also Azaitar, Jalen Turner as well. Demolished Geraldo Valdez, which was like, I think it was like 5
Yeah.
knockdowns in 1 round. And he managed to get it done.
I think isn't it the record?
I
I
think
think he
so.
broke the record for it in that fight. Yeah. Because I think it was a tough one guy that got knocked down like 4 times back in the day.
Forrest Pets.
But now it was Forrest Pets. Yeah, Forrest Pets knocked down a guy, I think, like 4 times and couldn't finish him in a fight. And Matt Frevola, I think he broke the record.
I also have some issues about how much Saint-Denis. I think his striking defense is a little bit vulnerable as well. That's something that I have a bit of a concern by, because yes, he does like to wade in and full pelt, try and get people out of there up against the fence. But with that, you're thinking, is this guy leaving his chin out there? And we know that Frevola in the pocket can crack.
I fully suspect Benoit Saint-Denis to force the pocket exchange, and it's over. Like, that's not my official prediction, but I totally see that. Like, because he just takes too many shots. He doesn't care about getting hit, but just because the person doesn't mean their body and chin and brain don't want to be damaged. I mean, he can still put the lights out, whether you care or not. And Matt Frevola's got that power on it, because Drew Dober's got a crazy chin. Look at the size of his head. Drew Dober is damn near in the club me, Cejudo, and Ortiz started. And, like, he's got a good chin on him.
Good jawline as well.
Cold. Yeah. He looks like...
you know that Chad meme, like the black and white one with the really chiseled jawline?
Yeah. He kind of looks like that. I have another thing I say, but I just realized can't say that on air. So, anyways, maybe I can't even make it a Brucey bonus Patreon thing. It's a horrible joke.
Yes.
Me and my friends have a horrible sense of humor. But yeah, Matt Frevola, I think I'll go ahead and say that I'm picking him to win. I think he's the much more polished guy. I think he's the much more battle-tested guy. But if Benoit Saint-Denis does it, man, maybe there's something to this hype outside of the fun. I'm looking for this fight. Sounds odd. These first 2 fights are amazing, I think.
I'm in exactly the same boat. I think there's a lot of value in Frevola winning this one. I understand why Saint-Denis is the favourite, and I think, especially early on, Frevola is vulnerable. But the longer the fight goes, the more I think Frevola's going to find more success.
I think because, like, when a guy finishes fights like that, you always got to question that gas tank, especially a guy who's all aggression. So I think it's probably a 3rd round finish.
So we're going to move on to fight number 3 now, and we're going down to the strawweight division. It is number 5 taking on number 7. It's Jessica Andrade taking on Mackenzie Dern. And it's Dern who comes in as a minus 200 favourite. You can get Andrade at plus 165. Now, the last time that we talked about Jessica Andrade on this show was UFC 283, where she was going to be taking on Lauren Murphy in the flyweight division. And arguably, Andrade put in one of the most one-sided, dominant performances of her career. And there's a lot of people quite rightly saying, hey, Andrade has still got a lot of fire in this tank. She's still going to be a tough out for anyone at both flyweight or strawweight. What's gone on since then?
Well, if I remember right, we talked about her for 288, and you and me both picked her to win, and she got put out cold.
I forgot about the Yan fight. I apologize.
Yeah, Yan Xiaonan just put her out cold. I did too. I thought it was on a fight night though. But I had to pull it up because I was like, oh, was it on a fight night or not? It was bugging me. But I mean, you could argue it's the competition she's fought. Erin Blanchfield, you and me have both said, like, she's fighting for a title at some point. Her and Alexa Grasso probably are next year if they don't do a trilogy between Grasso and Shevchenko.
I think they're going to.
I said it then, and this is without any jokes. Like, this is pure, Joe Neal, not the personality or, the character talking. I think Shevchenko probably deserves it. But at the same time, I just want to move on, man. I don't want this division to get logjam like this, especially because I don't think Shevchenko deserved an immediate rematch, admittingly. That could be some bias in there. As we all know, I'm not a Shevchenko fan, and I'm an Alexa Grasso fan, so I totally understand if anyone disagrees with me. I just want to see... I don't want to see this, like, all right, let's have Manon Ferro and Erin Blanchfield kill one off. Like, I just kind of want to see him go back-to-back, get title shots at this point. I think Ferro deserves it over Blanchfield, but Still, you know. But she fought Erin Blanchfield, got smashed on. It was on super short notice. I remember that. Just got smashed on by someone who's the future, you know, to be honest. Then Yan Xiaonan, huge upset, but someone who's actually building momentum at 115 pounds at strawweight. Got finished. Then she fought Tatiana Suarez, who you and me have both said just gonna, you know, run that way all the way to the title shot against Weili Zhang. So those are three very good fighters, but at the same time, it just isn't there anymore. Something feels off. I know that she had some personal issues she was fighting through, and that's why she was taking multiple fights all the time. Apparently, things are better in her personal life, but I still admittingly worry that this is a year where she goes 0-4 in 2023. Crazy statistic.
For a fighter who is very, very good. And that's the thing with Jessica Andrade. I think a lot of people are forgetting just how feared she was at one point. I think that someone made a point, and I do agree with this one. Someone made this point online that I don't think Jessica Andrade has ever been the smartest fighter in this weight class. But she always made up for it by being so physically imposing and just swarming people that she was still able to get around it. But now that she's 32, she's had a lot of fights under her belt. This is going to be fight number 37 of her career, which is insane for a female fighter to be going this long. And she's only 32 years old, so she's been fighting a long time and from a young age. We're starting to see that now she doesn't have that physical prowess. The lack of intelligence is starting to suffer. Like, because I think I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think Chris Cyborg also had similar sort of accusations of just sort of overwhelming opponents with her physicality. But even Chris realized, hey, I need to be a little bit more intelligent, a little bit more clinical about how I do things. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why she's been able to extend her career as long as she has. Yeah. Andrade hasn't done that yet. No. And we're talking about someone, like, you mentioned this, like, people don't realize how good Jessica Andrade was. I legitimately believe Jessica Andrade was 2 minor adjustments to her game plan away from being at one point maybe the best fighter out of all women divisions, like pound for pound best. If she just learned how to jab and throw an inside low kick to set up her offense more, she in her prime she would have smashed everyone, I think, because using the kicking against Joanna would have done wonders for her. Threatening with a jab, she would have been able to have gotten inside and then utilize her strength and athleticism. You know, this is someone that used to fight at 135. She made her debut at 135, and she was ranked at 135 as well. Yeah, like she fought Rocky. Like, she beat Pacheco. She fought Rocky back in the day, right? Like, Pacheco's like the 145, one of the best 145ers in the world right now, and Andrade submitted her in a round. Yeah, her and Rocky went 1-1. The Rosie Sexton fight it's hard to watch, admittingly, but it is a incredible smashing performance from her. Jessica Penne, like, tons of names on her belt of her and she, in my opinion, the number 2 best women's fight ever is her and Claudia Gadelha. What a fight. That, like, there's like 3 fights I think of when I go, oh, that's the best women fight ever. There's a lot of them. I know everyone loves the Weili Zhang Joanna fights. That's my number 3. That first one's number 3 for me. The second one's almost as good. It's like number 4 probably. But Claudia and Andrade is number 2, and then Jessica Penne, Michelle Watterson, the Karate Hottie. That's my number 1 ever. That fight is unbelievable. Don, I thought you were going to say Pena Nunes won. Actually, my real favorite fight is. You know what? You're right. I need to readjust the list. My real favorite fight is probably Alexa Grasso beating Valentina Shevchenko. You know, all it turned out is, like, if you pressure her with basic rudimentary boxing, she's going to panic and throw just a random spin kick. Now, if you just move to the side, because spinning on your back foot, that's like a rookie mistake, right? Are you sure you're not Jack Slack? You just put on like an English accent and go by that alias. You guys caught me. You guys caught me.
I'm done. I'm done with the Shevchenko jokes. I think I've hit my limit for the day.
Trying to get this back on
Eventually, people are going to
track.
think I'm not joking.
I think it's a
I don't
sign
know. It's
of how poor Andrade's stock is right now, because if I had to choose for Mackenzie Dern, like her biggest stylistic nightmare, I would have said Jessica Andrade because of the power, because of the top game. I'd struggle to pick Dern to win that one. But that was before this losing streak. Now we're in a situation where Mackenzie Dern is a 2-1 favoured up against her.
I think the other thing too is if you like when you think about like fight years. I'm trying to think. I couldn't remember the word fight years. We talked about this when we talked about
Fight
Aldo.
rage, yeah.
Like for Aldo's retired. Yeah. Like there's the age that you have listed. Then there's how much mileage you have. Andrade is probably like in her 50s or 60s in fight years, admittingly. That's a lot of mileage on her. And now I think Andrade is a scary matchup for Mackenzie Dern, but Mackenzie Dern's on a little bit of an uphill turn ever since she got a divorce. Single Mackenzie Dern has been, like only one fight, but she looked really good against Angela Hill that I didn't actually expect her to win. In a really good fight.
The big thing that stood out for me with Dern in that fight was that we know that Mackenzie Dern is an amazing ground fighter. We know that she's going to try and snatch up an arm, and if she does, she's going to submit you straight away. The big thing that stood out for me was how she was much more comfortable using ground and pound to try and set up these submission attempts.
Yeah, it's huge, I think. And she looked pretty comfortable on the feet. I thought she was just going to get outclassed and outmaneuvered for 5 rounds by Angela Hill. No, she looked really comfortable out there. Good offensive footwork, good ways of pressuring the tall, lanky distance fighter. In a really good showing, I think, from her. If those improvements were like obviously, if you show up massively improved for a fight, the hope is you keep that improvement going. But that isn't usually how it is. I think if there is major improvements, this is a really easy matchup for Jessica, told you the facial hair lost all my power. It's like Samson, man. Mackenzie Dern, I think, has a really good matchup going into this fight. But when you look at these fighters, and like Jessica Andrade in her prime is a horrible matchup for Mackenzie Dern. I'm right there with you. But she's 0-3 in less than 12 months. It's kind of rough, I don't know. This is a weird one for sure. I'm kind of torn on this one, admittingly.
I think there are some concerns I do have with Mackenzie Dern in that obviously we know if Mackenzie can get the fight to the ground, I think she's got a really good chance of submitting Andrade, because that's one thing that has stood out for me with Andrade, which like a lot of people forget. Jessica does have a pretty good grappling base. We've seen her submit a lot of people. But if she gets taken down and she's on the bottom, I think her game just seems to crumble a lot. And we've seen that a lot of times over the past few years. It was something that Blanchfield did to her. It's something that Suarez did.
Shevchenko destroyed
Chev did
her.
That, in my opinion, is Shev's best performance. She looked like the best power fighter in the world in that fight. Yeah,
she looked... I told myself I'm not going to make another joke, and I won't. She looked every bit as, the legend says about her. Like, she looked... Because I picked Andrade to win that fight. I thought Andrade was like, oh, she's too strong. And, Andrade beat Caitlin Chookagian. And when Caitlin got hit with that body shot...
to put away.
Yeah, she hit Chookagian once clean. And Chookagian literally tried to walk it off like, I don't want to fight anymore, and got finished. Andrade has a different kind of power that division hadn't really seen. It was ironic coming from someone who moved up to that division. But I thought, that's going to be some problems for her. Shevchenko's just going to have to get on her bike and make it boring. No, she just took her down and abused the lack of, bottom game from Andrade.
Yeah. But to get Andrade to the ground, you're going to have to stand with her. And Mackenzie Dern striking, I think that it's not as bad as people make it out to be. but it's very much the sort of brawling type of striking. I'm thinking the match with Verna Jandiroba, which is actually a very underrated fight. It's a fun brawl, which I do recommend people checking out. And I'd argue it's Mackenzie Dern's best win. Like, Verna is, in my opinion,
Probably.
really making a good run for herself. She's very underrated. And Dern won that one comfortably.
Unbelievably underrated is Verna Jandiroba. And Dern won in a kind of a fun little sloppy brawl. I always think of, I forgot who it was, but she threw the kick and fell, and her opponent just followed her to the ground. She's like, okay, I'll take your arm now.
Was it
That's always like
Cyphers?
was it? No, was it? It wasn't Robertson, was it?
Oh, no, it was... no, it was the girl that she beat Tyler Santos, wasn't it? Mara...
Randa Marcos.
No, I was thinking Barella.
It was Randa Marcos. Oh.
No, it was Marcos. It was Marcos, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, because she threw the kick, Marcos sidestepped it, and she fell. Marcos went to the ground with her. One of the worst low IQ moments in fighting. Went to the ground with Mackenzie Dern. And Mackenzie Dern just took an arm. Made it look easy. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn on this fight because, like, part of me goes, Jessica Andrade is on the downturn, so Mackenzie Dern should win, right? But I feel like it's really hard counting out somebody. Like, when a fighter that is actively has a great legacy, I think, it's really hard for me to count them out, especially when they're cornered like this, And I don't think Andrade has like a crazy legacy like a Shevchenko, olive branch extent. Shevchenko, the Nunez's or Cyborgs. I'm not saying that, but she was insane for like a series of time, like easily the number 2 fighter in the world for a very long time across, and probably this division's best era. And I think it's really hard to pick against her because what if she turns back the clock, kind of thing? Because then she can make this the really awkward matchup it is. But
I think the big things that have let Andrade down, not only recently but also early in the career, you need to be a better technician, striking, to get her frustrated and get her flurrying. That was something that Yan Xiaonan did very well. That was something that Shev did in their fight. It got Andrade frustrated and she started flurrying. It's how she got caught by Yan and how she got caught by Wei Li, doing the same thing. But also you have to overwhelm her. I don't think Mackenzie Dern is going to be able to do either. And for that reason, I am going to be choosing Andrade to end this losing streak.
I think I'm going to differ here. I think I'm going to differ on the sole reason that I could see Mackenzie Dern being a third ex-wife. I'm kidding. I if anyone is, as a single man, if you're ever want to talk about a beautiful woman, Mackenzie Dern is it. Go watch her grapple back in the day in a gi. Make sure your parents don't walk in. Let's just say that. It might have been an awkward scenario there. I remember watching it on my phone, and my dad goes, "What are you watching?" Like, I swear to God, this chick's actually a good grappler. You got to understand.
Have you ever watched her versus Gabby? Because there's like 100-pound weight difference between the two, and Gabby just like proper just picks her up, and Dern's like hanging onto her, trying to go for a triangle.
It was like watching like Rey Mysterio take on the Taker back in the day. And that's one way to break your nose, or break your orbital. That's from Mackenzie Dern. Anyways, I think I'm going to go Mackenzie Dern submission here, just because I think, despite everything we've said, I don't know if I think I hate being that guy, and I don't want to see it go 4 losses in 2023, which is still an insane statistic. I'm like when I say it, but I think it probably is. I think it's just time. Probably call it, maybe.
And if Andrade was to lose this one, is that it for her in the UFC?
I think she's got to call it. I wouldn't want to see her go to other divisions to, do that whole thing. Well, I mean, she could get a rematch with Liz Carmouche.
I I actually like the idea of that,
Yeah, me
Andrade
too.
Andrade in Bellator would be interesting to see. Because I think she could have success against that level of fighter.
And it would, if you think about it too,
To be fair,
that
bantamweight's
means,
so bad, Andrade could probably be top 10 there.
you know what? Jessica Andrade versus Rocky Pennington.
The
You
trilogy
think you're
fight.
special?
You
Yeah.
do.
You think you're special? That fits way more because it was a trilogy going into 17.
No, Rock Austin
You know,
2.
or no, it wasn't. It was 2-0. They had a trilogy because it's uh, Stone Cold wins 2-0 or 2-1. He wins that trilogy.
Yeah, and
19 is where
I think
they
they
end it.
used a Limp Bizkit promo for that fight as well, the 19 one.
I hope so.
Yeah, it was Here We Go Again.
That's funny, actually.
Yeah, I am
Not.
like to go just go off on a tangent. I am really gutted that Pena versus Pennington isn't happening because I put a lot of time into that video.
If anyone's interested, we'll make it a Patreon bonus. Like that's how we do it. Because I actually was excited for that matchup just to see that. Like, because what if the UFC stole it? Like, we could have a lawsuit on our hands. Like, hold on. Like, if they just asked if they could use it, I'm sure you'd be okay with it. Like, oh yeah, just give me credit. You know.
No, they'll
You
probably do
think
that
it's
same
special?
stock. They'll use that stock. You know how like they would always have Joe Rogan talking about the fight, and they would use the same stock footage all the time. It'd be like, X versus Y is widely regarded one of the most important fights in X division history. Same line every time.
I always think of back in the day where it's like where you have Goldberg doing a voiceover and it's like so and so here is Josh Koscheck. He might have lost the belt, but he's looking to make it or lost against George St. Pierre, but he's looking to make the comeback against Matt Hughes tonight. Then it just has like a
Coming
hard, like
up
awkward
next.
transition. Yeah, it has the awkward transition to Josh Koscheck, like with ice still on his eye, like, yeah, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna fight Matt Hughes. Like, and then coming up next. Like, yeah, it's
My
gonna be like
favorite
that
one
again.
of those, is, and this is random, but I think it was like a Mandy Bohm fight. This is how obscure this is. It was like a Mandy Bohm fight, and they obviously didn't have enough highlights to like build up like a package for her. Because I think she was fighting like Kim Ji Young or something like that. They didn't have enough highlights for Bohm. So one of them was her going for a takedown, getting it countered, and ending up on bottom, and that made it into the highlights package.
Could you imagine like them having to hype up Priscilla Cachoeira? Like, I, that sounds like a hard job. Ugh. Could pay that guy double if he made her interesting.
This
I
one,
think
yep.
I think I think one thing too, if you interesting, is if you get Andrade into Bellator, then UFC and Bellator get to share a very distinct record. I think that I think about. They would have three fighters who get. They would have had the three fighters who all fight nearly exactly the same with slight differences under their banner at one point, because everyone likes to say, and it's mean, but Cyborg in her fighting alone is Vanderlei-esque. I think Jessica Andrade is much more Vanderlei than Cyborg ever was, and that they get to have the Voltron because for some reason everyone forgets that Vanderlei fought twice in Bellator.
They need to get Lineker in as well.
Oh yeah, he was yeah. If they do that ONE FC crossover, just have Lineker throwing like this.
This one is going to be interesting though. We're going to be talking about the core main event. I am really, really excited for this one. It is Sergei Pavlovich who is going to be taking on Wigan's own Tom Aspinall. So it's number 2 versus number 4. The interim heavyweight title is on the line. The odds for this one pretty much dead even. A slight favourite for Tom Aspinall at -120 and a +110 for Sergei Pavlovich. Now, this is going to be yet another interim heavyweight title. I think it's like fourth or fifth one they've done so far. Previous one was Derek Lewis versus Cyril Gane, UFC 265. But I would go even further than that. And this is a bit of a hot take, a bit of a bold declaration I'm going to make here. Bearing in mind what the UFC has said regarding Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, is the winner of this fight the real heavyweight champion?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd say so. Because in my opinion, okay, remember what they did? Remember what they did recently with like, hey, Mateusz Gamrot, you're the backup for Islam and Charles, and Charles is out. Mateusz Gamrot, and guess what? We have great news. You're the backup for Islam and Volk.
He looks so annoyed when he was weighing in for that fight.
I feel so bad for him. If I remember correctly, they did the same thing for Pavlovich, because it was supposed to be Pavlovich as the backup for Jon Jones and Ngannou, and then that fight fell through. And then they go, Pavlovich, great news. Cyril Gane's gonna fight Jon Jones, and you're their backup still. So, and you and me firmly believe, I put money on it, that Pavlovich blasts Jon Jones in a round. I don't know if you've changed on that, but you and me have talked about that in the past. I firmly think Sergei Pavlovich would have smashed Jon Jones.
Stylistically, he'd be very tough. I have some concerns over Pavlovich's cardio and his grappling, but in terms of pure boxing, which has always been Jon Jones's weakness, I think he could have caused him a lot of problems.
I don't see Jon as the kind of wrestler to change levels like that aggressively, at least not anymore. And I think he would have if he would have like gone into clinch, because he wants to tie up and then get a throw or a trip in. To tie up, you have to get close, and that's in boxing range of Pavlovich, who's gonna knock your head off. I think that's a big problem for Jon, is that matchup. So I think this might as well just be the real title, because in my mind, Pavlovich is probably the best heavyweight on the planet, besides Ngannou, who's the real champ.
Yes, the lineal heavyweight champion.
Yeah, and he beat the best boxer in the world, they say. That was not on my bingo card for this year, by the way. I feel like I got cheated out. Francis Ngannou's going to fight Tyson Fury. Well, they've been talking about it for a while. Okay. Like, I'm sure Ngannou loses by decision cleanly. No, Ngannou won. Boxing's corrupt again? Well, I mean, I had that on my bingo card, but God, boxing is so rough. Boxing is so corrupt, and I love that sport. But yeah, this fight is it is a match made in heaven. It almost sucks that it's on slightly short notice.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat there. But the other thing I want to bring up in regards to the whole Jon Jones thing is it's how the UFC have seemingly handled it, because look, I saw a lot of people criticizing Stipe for not taking a match with Pavlovich, which from Stipe's perspective, I do understand, because this is his money fight. Fighting Jon Jones is his money fight. So I don't fault Stipe for turning this one down. But it's like, I say this all the time, like, Jon Jones likes to try and paint this narrative that he's quite unfairly treated by the UFC. But yet, he should be fighting the Pavloviches or the Tom Aspinalls of the world. In a fair meritocracy, that's what should be happening. The fact that they're catering for him and giving him the Stipe fight as his sort of like final send-off, it's like, you can't play that sort of pity party role when the company are going out of their way to cater to you. They've done it plenty of times in the past, and they're doing it again.
They moved an event for him
on a week's notice over Christmas.
Yeah, and Cyborg was telling everybody, hey, I lost money because of this, because California taxes more, and the UFC normally adjusts for that. They didn't, because it was so short notice. I lost a lot of money. So she probably got like $10 taken out of her $40 purse, because UFC don't pay anything.
And I think Corey Anderson as well, he was mentioning that they didn't pay for any travel, so he had to move his entire team out of his own pocket.
Yeah, and they didn't cover it. They didn't pay him back. And did that for John Jones. I don't understand. See, John Jones is a guy that I've been made a lot of references to Shevchenko jokes on this. That's all in good fun. I don't like her as a fighter. That's fine, but it's all in good fun. I got no ill will. John Jones, I'm not joking. I got nothing good to say about him. Legacy, the fighter, the person. I ain't got much good to say about him at all.
We even did an entire top 10 about it.
I tell people about that you and me had like 20 things listed. We had to cut it down to 10. Like you could have almost made 2 videos, a 2-parter, like the top 30 John Jones controversies. Like it's amazing. He's and not like it's I like the fact that we have characters in MMA. You know, like Sean Strickland is a character, a very weird one. And when I mean character, I don't mean like an act. I mean like, oh, that's a weird guy. It's a weird duck. Sean Strickland's a weird duck. John Jones is that duck you're embarrassed, of that like you want publicly shamed. It's a odd guy. I don't understand, but I understand. Stipe, from what I understand, is they didn't even ask him if he wanted to be an interim title, and Dana said that'd be insulting to him. And as you know, Dana is not insulting to any fighter. So, um, like I wouldn't even think of for that, and like cut to the Ngannou fight, the first one where Stipe ripped the belt out of Dana's hands and gave it to his trainer to put around his waist. Like, that makes Stipe the GOAT to me. Because he made... Oh, so did Fedor. I don't know. It's close again. They both made Dana White mad.
True. Yeah. I personally lean towards Fedor, but that's a discussion for another time. We need to be talking about this fight here. And
this fight's fantastic. And these guys could overtake it.
This is the most excited...
legitimately overtake it.
This is the most excited I have been for a heavyweight title fight probably since Ngannou versus Garn. Like, I am really... Because I'm fascinated by... I think what makes this fight so interesting to me is we've both seen what these guys can do inside of a round. They both have huge knockout power, huge finishing ability, but there's still so many unknowns because Sergei Pavlovich blowing people away inside of the first round. But we saw against Overeem that he can get taken down and look a little bit lost on the ground. Tom Aspinall has never gone the distance. How's his cardio going to hold up? It's so intriguing from that regard.
Because isn't that his only loss is Overeem, right?
His only loss is Overeem. Yeah, I was looking at the stats here. So his only loss was against Overeem. And I think he's had 15 first-round knockouts and 3 decisions.
15 KOs. That is unbelievable.
In the first round.
Yeah. Out of 18 wins, 15% like finishing percentage, like 15 wins. That's a high finishing rate. And against decent names like Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades is a crazy one to me. I will never understand for the life of me of why Curtis Blades just doesn't decide to wrestle with guys who can do that to him. But sure.
I think what he said was that he was spooked. I think he got caught by an uppercut by Pavlovich quite early on, and he was just like, I don't want to take that chance again because if I dive in, then the same thing's going to happen as what happened against Derek Lewis.
He does have that weird, and I love it. He has a fantastic lead uppercut. Pavlovich does. Like one of his like, I saw this combo a lot against fighters where he'll like throw a straight right and then come up with the uppercut and throw a straight right again. And I think it's because he's expecting fighters to just duck his straight right, and so he can just kind of come up and catch you as you duck into a left uppercut, which I think is sweet. God, this fight is so good. Yeah. And
because that's what he caught Shamil with, wasn't it?
Yeah, he caught him with the left uppercut.
Which I find that fight really sort of morbidly humorous because that fight happened. It was 2 Russian fighters, and it took place on the London card. but it was only a few weeks after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So you had these two Russian guys in London, and you could tell that the crowd didn't really want to cheer either of them. So it was just like,
So they're like, F this guy.
you both suck. You both suck.
Yeah. They were chanting CM Punk. It was awkward. Um, and it I see that's like the thing I think that's really interesting is these guys both have one loss on their record, but you got to think about Tom Aspinall's loss. Tom Aspinall had that freak injury from a checked low kick, but before that, because I watched that fight, it was hard to watch. I watched that fight the most in my research for this one, right? Because I watched that fight like 3 or 4 times, and Tom Aspinall is having a little bit of trouble landing in that fight, and he's taking some shots. So I don't know if it was because of the prior knee injuries that he had, and it was just kind of hard for him to, all he could do was just stand in place and throw straights. I don't really know. But, God, this fight is so fascinating. We could probably talk an hour just on this fight alone.
I think
this
when
is
you
the real main event.
Because the thing is, I think in terms of striking, I would give the edge towards Pavlovich because of the power.
Great.
I do think that Pavlovich can maybe be a little bit one-dimensional because it's very boxing-based, whereas I think Aspinall can utilize the kicks a lot more. But Tom himself, I think, is a very good striker. He's shown that with the amount of people that he's finished on the feet. The grappling, though, I fully give to Aspinall because you got to forget, you got to remember, Tom Aspinall has a BJJ black belt.
Yeah.
Like his dad is like
That's
one
his
of
base,
the.
isn't it?
What's that?
That's his base, isn't it?
His base is BJJ. His dad is one of the sort of like
First black
best
belts?
jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UK, like a coach.
Yeah, I heard, if I remember right, his dad was like among like the first native-born British like black belts ever. Like was like in that first like 10 or so, which is a crazy statistic. But then you realize jiu-jitsu hasn't been around as long in the world, and its influence on other cultures outside of Brazil and Japan aren't as relevant.
I will say being Britain's best jiu-jitsu practitioner is a bit like being Finland's best surfer.
That's fair. I mean, I always think of talking about Big Nog with my dad. I was like, well, Big Nog, man, he trains with, the Brazilian boxing team. And my dad just looks at me and he goes, that's like being Oklahoma's best hockey player. Like, who cares? Like, that's similar, but I think that still means something because he's a great grappler. He tapped out Volkov in my debut for the channel, my tryout gig. Recorded it on my phone. I still remember that. I hold that card near and dear to my heart because of that.
It was
also
a great
that card
card
just
as well. It's one of my favorite cards.
Oh yeah, I remember waking up for work that night. So I was working Saturdays at the time, and you messaged me and you're like, "Are you seeing this card? It's insane." And I turned it on and just went to the beginning, and I said, "I'm just going to be behind," and it was so good. Because I remember not knowing, like, does he want me to talk about every fight? I guess. So I did. It was, old young Joe still had the stars in his eyes. Wasn't forced to watch Polyana Viana versus JJ Aldrich.
Wait till you cover UFC 1. That's going to be fun.
I have the script done, and I mean, spoilers. I don't have anything done. I haven't watched that card in years. That card came out before I was born. I've never watched it. It's crazy to think that blew my mind when I think about that. This sport's a year, or MMA or UFC's a year older than me. It's wild. But I think the thing with Tom Aspinall is I give the edge to Pavlovich. I actually agree with the edges in both things. I think Sergei's probably more durable, or at least he gets hit less defensively, it seems like it. Mostly because once he hits you, you no longer want to punch back. He just kind of has that weird Pajeda-esque power.
He freezes you
on him. Yeah. When he hits you with the jab, you just go, I don't want to fight anymore. And he's just waiting for him to KO you, it seems like. I think Tai Tuivasa is the only guy I've seen get stunned by him and throw back. I think everybody else just kind of crumbled and died. and but Aspinall has good head movement, underrated head movement. Remember when he like did the Muay Thai, like Fizayev does, where he just leans like Sanchay, Fizayev, and Lerdzilla do. He did that to a Volkov kick, and it was sick. And then shot a low single and got it because he tapped out Volkov with an Americana. Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
he's light on his feet for a man of his size, which is, I think, one of the things
Yeah,
that.
very Cyril Gane-esque.
Yes, but he has the grappling base to go with it. I actually think Aspinall versus Garn could be a fantastic fight itself. So I think
I
that
picked Aspinall to win,
maneuverability
but yeah.
could be something which Tom has an advantage in, because the thing with look at the people that Pavlovich has fought. Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis, Taito Avasa, very slow fighters. Tom's going to be light on his feet and might not get caught with the big shots in the same way the other guys did.
I that's what makes this fight so interesting is like there's so many variables in this fight for each guy. I think there's a legitimate argument because earlier this week, I'll be honest, I was like, I love this fight. I think it's fantastic, but Pavlovich is just gonna win. When I finished my research Thursday, I was like, oh, well, at least for this fight, I gave myself one day for the main event, just one full day, because I wanted to watch all these fights. We'll talk about it, obviously, but yeah, I was like, man, there's a little bit more to this. Like Tom Aspinall can really do things to make it like to just outmaneuver him, out finesse him. Because that's the weird thing. He's a huge guy. Obviously, he's a heavyweight, but he's very finesse based, not like strength and thing. And he has finishes with all 8 Venoms in Muay Thai. Like I've seen him elbow guys, I've seen him knee guys. He has great kicks, fantastic hands, a lot of power, very very quick. Probably the fastest heavyweight right now in the top 10, if not uh, everybody. Then again, that teep kick to double's pretty quick. Um,
I am waiting for the
we're
moment. Like,
recording
obviously,
before
we're
the
recording
fights.
this before Jilton versus Derek Lewis, so we don't know the result of this fight. So it's going to be coming out a few hours after you do your reaction video. But I am waiting for the moment where Jilton goes teep kick to double leg, it doesn't work, and just like, what do I do now?
He taps. What if he just like tapped? Like
Just
right
I
there.
give
Like I
up.
don't want
That's
to
my
fight
only
anymore.
go-to.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. It's all I got. I've said it before on this show. I just want to see it work all the way to the top. Like, I want to see him be the one to beat John Jones with it. Like, I think that sounds so funny. I think that just sounds so funny. Like, John Jones, the greatest ever, some people say. He got beat by a guy just threw a teep kick and double leg. This guy did it for like 15 fights straight before that. Like,
Which would be
sounds so
worse, John
amazing to
Jones
me.
losing to teep kick to double leg, or being outjabbed by Juliana Pena? So, like, that was how the winning
Uh,
streak was ended.
I think it's more embarrassing in the moment to be outstriked by Juliana Pena, but I think I think the fall from grace would be harder from like you've been fighting forever, you've been beating all these guys while roided to the gills and all this stuff. If he just comes out like teep kick, double leg, and then he beats you that way, like I think I think that fall from grace would I don't think he'd be the same fighter ever again if you got beat by that after he's done it 50 times in a row. Like I just don't understand it. Um, I also think it sounds really funny the idea that Derek Lewis, what if like Derek Lewis just stands up afterwards and he has to do it again? Like he just keeps standing up like that old meme. Derek Lewis doesn't care about jiu-jitsu. He just kind of stands up. And I don't know. That fight sounds really fun tonight. I'm gonna watch it like live. I'm super excited to see what happens. Mostly for the opener. Not as exciting as this fight though. And I, man, I'm kind of torn. I don't know. You can obviously see like my like two parts of me. On one hand, I really like Pavlovich here. I think he's the best fighter, best heavyweight on the planet that isn't Ngannou. Um, on the other hand, there's a lot more ways for Aspinall to win, and I historically like that. Especially if we've seen Aspinall shoot a low single. He's not like a crazy wrestler, but he can take you down. We've seen him shoot this low single, and we saw what he did against Volkov, who is very, very experienced and has been on his back against great grapplers before, and he, you know, just made it look easy. Went through his guard like butter, took his shoulder and nearly ripped it off. And Pavlovich isn't that kind of guy on the ground. It's super interesting. And I think I'm going to change my whole mind here in honor of me having the Aspinall facial hair.
So you're going to pick Tom Aspinall to win this one?
I think first round submission. I think he taps him similar to the Volkov fight.
I have to and froed about this one so many times. I mean, it is really hard for me to pick a winner of this one. And because I'm in a similar boat to you, I think that Tom Aspinall has more ways to win this fight. And I can see a situation where he submits him on the ground. I just think Pavlovich hits so hard. I don't think Tom's going to get the chance to get him there. So I'm picking Pavlovich.
Yeah. Man, I got to be honest. If I was a coward, I would take the coward's way out here. But I guess I've already used my once this year. I think I should have used it I should have saved it for this matchup because I don't understand how you pick either here. This is as close of a fight. This is why I'm so excited for this card. We talked about 3 fights. 2 of them I'm mega pumped for. 1 I'm interested in. And then this 4th one here is the 2 best heavyweights on the planet that aren't from Cameroon and France, like going at it based on meritocracy. And they create such an interesting matchup on paper that we know it's probably only going to be around less than 5 minutes. These guys are going to fight most likely. And who knows? Like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, it's so hard to pick either one here. And I think this is probably the first of a trilogy. I could see this being, I had this in my notes. This is going to be our generation's Kane and Dos Santos, isn't it? Or Fedor Big Nog. Like, there's a series in generations of, like, every generation has that heavyweight rivalry to, like, that has a trilogy. So it was like Fedor Big Nog. Then it was, or before that, it was Don Fry and Ken Shamrock. No, it wasn't that. It was Ken Shamrock had one. I forgot what. Ken Shamrock and Al Snow was the original. And then it was, but we had like the big one for a lot of people was Fedor and Big Nog, and then it was Kane JDS. Then it was Stipe. Oh, Arlovsky Sylvia was in the middle of that. Yeah, around the same time almost as like Fedor and Big Nog. And then we had most recently big trilogy we had was DC and Stipe. And it's like, man, of all those trilogies, we all know what the worst one is. The worst one is because of how bad that third fight is the Arlovsky Tim Sylvia one. But between the other 3, it's like, man, which one's the best one? Like, part of me wants to give it to Fedor, Big Nog, like, they're all 3. But I think this is that next trilogy. I think we're going to see, in about 2-3 years, we're going to see Aspinall Pavlovich 3.
Because these guys are both young for the weight class as well. Pavlovich is 32, Tom Aspinall's 30 at heavyweight.
Yeah, in an old man's division. Like, these are divisions that if you're 37 is your prime, or you're either retire or you hit 37 and just start smoking everybody.
Which is appropriate because we've got a 37-year-old who's going to be fighting in our main event. The light heavyweight title is on the line. It's almost as if we've rehearsed this show,
Yeah, I mean, we're just too good at our jobs. We're really good at just pulling things out of our butt and just making it work. or as Brock Lesnar once said, we're really good at turning chicken poop into chicken salad.
I thought
I just wanted to
when you
reference
talked
that
about butts and Brock
that
Lesnar,
season's so funny.
when you talked about butts and Brock Lesnar, I thought you were talking about horseshoes.
Oh yeah, or or Sable. No, neither one of us were Sable fans actually. Yeah, neither one of us were Sable fans. Funny enough, I remember you and me talked about that. You're like, oh, I always thought she looked old. Don't kill us, because I agreed. Don't kill us, Brock. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because the thing is, Brock will hunt us down.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I watched Triple H go on that. I hate this channel usually, but Lad Bible, where he was trying U.S. versus British stacks, um, and they put like it was like a British pork rind,
Yeah.
essentially. It was like fried pig fat, and then it was that versus like American beef jerky, and he was eating it, and he goes, "Well, I'm picking beef jerky. I'm a big beef jerky fan." And he goes, "Brock Lesnar has a beef jerky company on his own, or a brand of beef jerky he makes for people, and it's amazing." And I went, "I have to be friends with Brock Lesnar now. I want to try that beef jerky because I
So,
know all he does is hunt and just."
light heavyweight title is going to be on the line. There are a little bit of a few sync issues here, so there is a little bit of a delay on our part, but we will try and persevere. But light heavyweight title is going to be on the line, and it's Alex Pereira who's going to be taking on Jiri Prochazka. I have tried to get both of those pronunciations right. Alex Pereira comes into this one as a minus 145 favourite. You can get Prochazka in at plus 120. Now, I think it's safe to say, Joe, the light heavyweight division, it hasn't been great these past couple of years, has it?
No, it's been awful. But I think as awful as it's been in my mind, the last three champions have been. I know what's his face, Jamal Hill technically was the last one, but I don't for some reason I don't really count him. That's not fair to him, but I think of Jiri as the champion still. Then Glover and Jan, and I think while their runs weren't great, I mean Yuri's still on his for me. I respect those champions a lot, you know. Um, but my God, this rest of this division has not been great. Like it's been a rough one for this division.
I don't think it's so much that the champions have been bad, because I'm very similar to you. I think each
Mm-hmm.
of those three in their own separate ways. Yuri, incredibly entertaining. Glover as the old man proving everyone wrong. Jan Blachowicz being this journeyman fighter who finally put it all together. Three fantastic stories.
Yeah.
It's the inconsistency. We should be getting like 2 or 3 light heavyweight title fights a year, but injuries forced Yuri to vacate. You had that weird match between Ankalaev and Blachowicz. Jamal Hill ended up getting the belt, which came out of nowhere because that was very short notice between him and Glover. Then he ended up vacating the belt. You just want a little bit of stability. It's a bit messy right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's only like it's just I hope we stabilize it here. But instead we have a guy who arguably lost his last fight, a former middleweight
I
fighting for the belt.
personally scored that fight for Jan. Admittedly, I'm not the biggest
Me
Alex
too.
Pereira fan, so I might be a little bit biased in that regard, but I thought that Jan's work on top was that, to me, got
Was enough.
priority over what Alex was doing on the feet.
Yeah. Which wasn't as much as everyone likes to make it out to be. Because I watched that fight yesterday, and I wasn't
It's not a good
overly
fight.
impressed with him in that fight.
I don't think it was a good fight.
No, it's weird. I think it was just a matchup. I think like Jan had to fight Pereira that way, but I mean it makes sense to me. But like in Jan, he's really fun or boring. Like he's also kind of hot and cold for me. And he just kind of kind of held him down, tried to make things work, couldn't do it. And then Pereira on the feet couldn't get much doing it because he was worried about getting taken down. I don't know. It's a weird one.
I think the altitude didn't help things. I think putting that fight in Salt Lake City on both fronts, because Pereira didn't really want to take too many chances because obviously you're going to tire yourself out. And Jan was using this wrestling game, which he wasn't used to. He's not really that kind of a fighter. And he ended up tiring himself out. I think that if it took place at sea level, it would have been it would have been a much better matchup
Clear
on both
Jan.
ends.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would have been. I think it would have been a much better fight, and I think Jan would have won clear. I think the boost would have helped him out, make it a much more heavy grappling game. Um, I mean, I like this fight a lot because I love Jiri. Like I said earlier, I spent one day just researching Jiri fights, and there's only 3 in the UFC. There's a lot in like Ryzen and stuff. Um, but what 3 fights there are in the UFC? Oh my god! His debut is unbelievable against Volkan Ozdemir, a guy who I think is supremely underrated, admittingly. And then one of the best fights I've ever seen, him and Dominic Reyes. And then with a crazy finish that I have a friend who's a paramedic, and he joked, he goes, my instinct was to go, we have to resuscitate. After he saw that knockout, he goes, oh, I had that instinct of, I got to resuscitate this guy. I think he just went out, like out. Horrifying finish,
I
a
heard some.
crazy one, and a fantastic fight.
I heard somebody make the
Go ahead.
joke that Ryan Spann didn't knock out Dominic Reyes. It was residue from the Jiri knockout.
It might have been like, I mean, that is an unbelievable knockout, and like from everything to the sequence to the strike itself to the face plant, it's like a video game perfect like snapshot of a KO. And then my fight of the year last year, one of the best title fights I have ever seen, was Yuri Glover. I was blessed to watch that fight twice yesterday. Once full attention with notes, and the other time for fun, just like on my phone while I was doing other things. It's like watching an anime. Like I have friends who aren't big MMA fans, but they like anime, and I always give them crap because I used to like watch a lot of anime, but not so much. I grow up. Just made all our anime fans upset in our comments. I'm sorry. Um, but jokes aside, I there's that like running gag, I guess, like a trope in anime where one guy starts beating up the other guy, and then the guy losing, just, oh, the power of friendship. I can power up, and now I'm gonna start winning the fight. And then the other guy kind of powers up too, and it's just a series of just doing this until one wins. And that is kind of how that fight feels for me. Jerry would nearly knock out Glover on the feet. Glover would get a desperation takedown, and then nearly finish him with a submission or ground and pound. And then they would get up and rinse repeat back and forth for like 24 minutes. And it is, I don't know how you score that fight. I remember hearing like, oh, it was a big comeback win for Jerry. Like, I don't remember scoring it. I just remember going, oh my God, am I watching this live? This is unbelievable.
I believe, if I remember correctly, I think the scorecards, they had Glover 3-1 up, and then Jiri got that last minute
Okay.
submission. But I'm in the same boat as you. I just think the momentum shifts in that fight. The fact it was striker versus grappler. It was a comparatively new pace versus the grizzled veteran on this fairy tale run. I love it. I'm in the same boat as you. It was my fight of the year, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, that fight tells a story and has a very interesting narratives going into it that it feels like it should have been at WrestleMania. Like it just plays out perfectly. And I remember him going for the choke, and I was like, is he really going to go for a rear naked with no hooks in? I was like, I guess he just has to make it a modified bulldog. And one of my friends who doesn't really watch fights, he goes, what's that? I was like, it's basically what you do when you're not good enough to get hooks. And then the tap happens, and I felt like such an idiot. And I was like, oh, man, well, I look stupid. The finish is insane. I remember the roof blowing off of my house. I went, oh, I look so stupid, but I'm so excited. Like, what a way for that fight to end. And just a masterpiece of, the most primal thing we as humanity has, violence. Like, it was just chef's kiss all around. And I'm so happy he's back. I'm so happy he's back.
But this is a Jiri Prochazka who hasn't been in action for a good long time. Are we going to see that same sort of creativity, that same explosiveness that we did first time around? Can he return back to the same fighter he was? Is ring rust going to be a factor?
You remember the injury?
Shoulder.
Was it shoulder? Right. Ask Randy Orton how those go. Like I heard they're not as like, everyone talks about the knee injuries and the back injuries, and neck injuries for like fighters. Like wrestlers, it's like neck, back, knees. For fighters, I usually hear it's like knees and back. I feel like shoulders just don't get not the love, I guess, but the gravitas behind the weight of like, oh, he has a really bad shoulder injury. I feel like that's just as bad, as like a knee or anything, because that's a lot of movement you have.
Look how long it took Johnny Walker to get back to his winning ways after his shoulder injury.
I laughed because I remembered how he had his shoulder injury. What an idiot.
We love him though. We love Johnny.
Yeah, he was super fun. Actually, him and Uncle Aya was fun for like a little bit it lasted. And what an awful card though. Anyways, back to good cards. God, what an awful card. But I have a fear, right? I think Jiri is the much better MMA fighter.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think when you look at Alex Pereira is one of my picks for the bottom 5 worst champions ever because the guy can only kickbox. He's amazing at it. Arguably one of the best strikers in MMA history, and I think the pound-for-pound hardest hitter we've ever heard of in this sport because he hits guys, and they go flying like a cartoon. He hit Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland, I think, went into the front row, then crawled back in unconscious. Who's the champ now? Just unbelievable power on him. But he could just kickbox. This guy can't shoot a double or a single or, if you grab his leg and just hold it, he kind of panics and loses. Like, I think the altitude is the only reason Jan didn't finish him on the ground. I don't understand. But the fear I have is Jiri is a wild, I don't want to say idiot because he's a lovable idiot. But
he
he's
thrives
a wild
in chaos.
Man. Yeah, he wants that chaotic madness. And that's how you get put out. And family friend of mine, humble brag, he went to one of my birthdays as a kid. King Mo blasted Jiri Prochazka and Ryzen. And King Mo hits like a truck too. It was past his prime, King Mo, and everything like that. And he KO'd Jiri. I think that was Yuri's last loss.
Was it Nemkov as well?
I kind of feel like Jiri. I thought he beat Nemkov.
Oh, sorry. I know they fought in Ryzen.
They fought though. Yeah, now I gotta know. Because I thought he was only Nemkov's only loss. Because his only losses are he beat Nemkov.
I'm in a similar boat to you when it comes
he beat him the same night.
I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to Alex Pereira. Like, I think most people who follow me online or watch these videos know I'm not a big Alex Pereira fan. A lot of reasons behind that. But I'm in a similar boat to you in that I think one of the big issues I personally have with Alex Pereira is I hold his kickboxing records in a very high regard, and I'm not going to try to take that away from him. But it doesn't sit well with me that a guy who has 10 MMA fights has the potential to be a champion in 2 weight classes. To me, that's something that you have to strive and work for years of your career to get to that stage. And it doesn't sit well with me that he seems to be given this on a plate, when you bear in mind as well how fast-tracked he was. Like, he got the Strickland fight in his 3rd UFC fight.
Yeah, and then that was a number of contenders match. And then he went in and beat Adesanya. because he was petty. The only reason he got there was because of pure pettiness.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny. As someone who likes to laugh at petulance, like when it's so over the top, not Dana White because he plays with too much fire of things I love, but I don't really. I think he seems like a funny guy. Seems like a nice enough guy when Adesanya isn't around. But I'm not necessarily a fan of Pereira as well. But that is a level of pettiness that I wish I had in me. Like my biggest rival in the sport, he left and he's the champion of another combat sport. Time to go show him who dad is. Like that is hysterical to me.
But it's when
But
you're
at the
doing
same
things
time, man,
like it's when you're doing things like, is he talking about his boxing career? Because obviously he was cornering Francis for the Fury fight, and he started talking about his own boxing career, and then Pereira immediately posts and says, "I might pursue a boxing career." It's just like, get over yourself. You're 37 years old.
it's weird. I want to know what like Izzy like. Did Izzy bully him in school or something? Like I don't understand. Like why him of all of people? If anything, Pereira should be lucky because for a guy that owns that trilogy, he's up 3-1 or in their rivalry across all sports. He's up 3-1. He's lost 95% of the time they fought together. He should be thanking the Lord he's up 3-1 instead of even trying to get near him. But I have this awful feeling that Jiri, he's going to have the antenna on his head, and the antenna is going to be telling him, why don't you just like take this guy down and just beat his ass? And he's going to say, no, that's not what a samurai would do, and would try to make it chaotic and just get blasted by a left hook. I fear that. And like I think this fight is super cool on paper. I think this fight is before the heavyweight mix-up, I was actually much more excited for this fight. Now it's kind of funny. It's flipped. And much more excited for the heavyweight fight. But it's mostly because I have that fear that he's just going to do something stupid and make me go, oh no, first Aljo, now you. And then we have to have, what's the statues on Easter Island? Like, that guy's got to be champ again.
Do you think
the name of the
that
statues?
obviously Alex and Glover Teixeira training partners, Glover's the coach. Glover obviously had a lot of success against Jiri first time around. Do you think that could play a part in how Alex approaches this fight?
Yes. There is one technique that Glover Teixeira didn't use until the very end of the fight. But if he would have used it from the jump, he probably would have finished Jiri. Jiri was like trying to do like shoulder rolls and head movement, but he got mixed up by Glover throwing a double jab. And so him throwing like a double jab into the big right hand, I kind of wonder if they're going to focus on like lead hand attacks from or doubling up on the same side, or even the double jab itself for Pereira to try and open him up. I think doubling up on the same side or mixing things up with your lead hand, especially when your main power weapon is a left hook, I think that's a very smart idea. But even double jab into left hook sounds incredible for Pereira here. And
on the other side, what's your take on Jiri's grappling? Because you've got to think he's going to try and utilize that in some capacity.
I hope so. I really, really hope so. I think it's fine. Like, it isn't what he's known for. Like, we talked about Pavlovich in the co-main event, who had that crazy finishing rate. Well, here's another guy. Jiri Prochazka of 29 wins has 28 by stoppage. That's even crazier. And most of it is KOs, 25 knockouts. Which is just outrageous when you think about it. But I feel like if he gets you to the ground, he just kind of swarms and hopes he can finish you right then and there. Like, he isn't looking to stay there for a while. He's looking to kind of get in and get out already of a fight. Like, he wants to finish you as quick as possible. He has a decent takedowns and not the best defense. His stance leaves himself open for takedowns, but he isn't going to worry. He isn't going to have that problem here. I mean, if Alex, wow, that's a thing to think about. What if Alex Pereira comes out and we see like a snap
He
kick
kicked
and
a
we're like,
double
okay,
leg.
yeah, like we see deep kick double leg. What if Alex Pereira has like been training like with Yeldon Almeida? It's a thing to think about. Um, uh, uh, I I think obviously if he does snatch a neck, he has the basic understanding of what to do with a neck. Which if between these two guys, if one's going to submit the other, I'm picking Jiri to submit him, to submit Pereira. Um, but it definitely isn't his bread and butter. It's kind of an awkward matchup for Jiri, I think here.
Yeah.
Because Jiri should just take him down and just be a better fighter because he is a better fighter. But Alex Pereira could just take advantage of Jiri having a bad game plan and win. That's what's kind of weird about this fight is I think the clear better fighter isn't necessarily going to win.
It's very similar to Pavlovich versus Aspinall.
Yeah. Yeah, because John Jones wins. He doesn't have to fight either. The worst fighter out of the three of them wins because he gets to avoid one of them.
I'm in the same boat as you. I'm leaning towards Alex Pereira to win this one, and that's hard for me to say because I'm not really the biggest fan of the guy, but I just think there's so much of a risk of Jiri getting careless and getting caught because Glover did catch him in that fight, and Glover's never been known. Well, later career Glover wasn't known for his striking power.
Yeah. Jiri kind of comes across as like the ultimate glass cannon. Like he's a little easy to hit, and you can put him out. Like he openly admitted Dominic Reyes KO'd him in their fight with an up kick. Like he talked about, I got knocked out. I literally woke up as he was trying to get out from underneath me, and I went, oh, I'm in side control, I guess. And he's a little easy to hit, and he can be put out. We've seen his lights get turned off before. God, I'm right there with you. I want to be wrong so bad. I legitimately want Jiri to beat Pereira because I go, wow, Jamala Hill and Jiri sounds really fun. That fight sounds like a all-time classic.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think Pereira and Jamala Hill will be, because I think Jamala Hill would fight a little bit smarter and go, I'm just going to take you down.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, we'll just sort of end on this sort of like note here, is that I think most people, as they know, like I'm not the biggest Alex Pereira fan, but I was trying to work out what the big reason why, and I think I've clicked on it. You know how Chev has those simp fans who will retweet all of her sort of first photos, and the fans like put her on a pedestal, like, oh my god, you're so beautiful, and nobody will ever be able to beat you, that sort of thing. Alex Pereira is the male equivalent. Like, I have seen so many people reposting sparring videos and just being like, oh my god, you're so big and scary, look at all your muscles. It's basically Vince McMahon and Gary Stridham.
Wow. I actually definitely see that because we've talked about this. There's a lot of people who weren't MMA fans but didn't like Conor McGregor, and they bought the Khabib fight just in hoping maybe this guy whose name I can't pronounce could beat this Conor guy I don't like, and then afterwards they became Khabib fans. Like, that was something that I legitimately believe happened. I think Izzy was such a polarizing champion that here comes this guy who's beat him multiple times. And if you don't like Izzy, what do you do? Like, well, how about I like the guy and become a weird simp fan for the guy that's knocked him out twice? And he has a kind of a weird fandom like that. And weird fandoms like that kind of turn me off from a fighter legitimately. I mean, Conor has the worst fandom ever. No offense if anyone of our viewers is like part of that. I should have rephrased. Oh no, they're coming in my house. But Conor has a fandom I'm not too particularly fond of, and that definitely could be it. But the Pereira one, yeah, no one ever talks about how weird his fans are.
And on that cheery note, it is time for us to wrap up the UFC 295 preview show. I think it's best that we do as well, because we have upset so many big fan bases. Like, we've upset Sheb, Pereira, Connor, John Jones. So I think we need to run for cover.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to go into the safe house. Maybe lie low for a little bit until next Saturday.
Yep. Or a little bit earlier on, because you'll be covering the fallout from UFC Sao Paulo, where it's Jilton Almeida versus Derek Lewis, where we're expecting to see another teep kick to double leg masterclass from Jilton. But if things change,
Absolutely.
then obviously you'll be on there to talk about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm fully expecting to have a Breaking Bad moment where I start crying like Jesse Pinkman and go, he can't keep getting away with this. But I like your wordplay there. You said the fallout, and I said safe house, like a fallout shelter. Slick wordplay there, Karl.
Yeah. And another thing that you'll be doing as well is recording our next retro review. Now, we do want to be apologizing for not getting these out. We do have a bit of a backlog, which hopefully I'm going to be getting a week off work. So hopefully I will try to get some of those ones which we promised like 2 months ago, finally get those ones out. We do have a very special one which will be happening in November. Now, Joe, set the scene. Why are we covering this fight, and what are we covering?
Next week is a big birthday. Dana White's going to bring out all the candles. He's going to blow them all down, and he's going to wish for a Conor McGregor return, because we all know that's what he's wishing for. But what birthday is it? It's UFC's 30th anniversary. So to commend that, I'm going to be covering UFC 1, where the first fight card in this illustrious promotion's history. It took place in 1993. I was born in 94, so that's kind of a trip for me when I was rewatching it. And it's arguably one of the most pivotal moments in human martial arts history. Not just mixed martial arts, our sport, but like in traditional martial arts. It's an incredibly pivotal moment that, admittingly, might have been a little, not rigged, but very favored for one family that seemed to be backing it.
Which you'll be talking about in a lot more detail when it comes to that video. Also, if you would like your own Patreon request, then you can please donate to the Patreon page at It's Not Cagefighting. If you do that, Joe will cover any event of your choice. So if there's a classic UFC card you want to see, if you want to be looking at, I don't know, let's say WEC, Strikeforce, even an Invicta card, if there's anything out there which we have access to, you can nominate it, and Joe will eventually get round to doing so. We do have 2 which are in the works as well. So you're going to be a very busy guy over the next couple of months, Joe.
I'm popular. What can I say? Also, if you're interested, I wanted to bring this up because me and Karl have been talking about it a lot. If there are any recommendations for like Patreon exclusive content, that would be kind of easy to do, and just kind of send up like maybe a Q&A for me or something, or anything like that. Let us know. So we're trying to see what we can do.
Yep, and we're going to be busy again in a month's time. We're going to be breaking out the Christmas Ganzies because UFC 296 will be taking place. Leon Edwards defending his belt against Colby Covington. A big card to close out 2023. That's all to look forward to. This has been the INC. My name's been Karl Bainbridge. That's been Joe Neal. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.